Now we have some breaking news coming in. Balakot terror camp, which had been targeted by Indian Air Force in February last year, has reopened. This time around, the camp's operations will focus on anti-India operations. Now, terror group Jaish-e-Mohammed's operatives will be trained at this camp. At the reopening of the camp, two brothers of Jaish chief Masood Azhar were also present. Now we are getting breaking news coming in. Balakot terror camp, which had been targeted by Indian Air Force in February of last year, has reopened. Now we know this time around the camp's operations will focus on anti-India operations. I repeat, they will focus on anti-India operations. Now the terror group Jaish-e-Mohammed's operatives will be trained at this camp. And at the reopening of the camp, two brothers of Jaish chief Masood Azhar were also present. Now, for more on this, we are being joined. We're going to go across to our political editor, Kartikeya Sharma, on the phone line. Kartikeya, this camp has reopened again after being targeted by the Indian Air Force last year. How do you see this development?
Internationally, it's a very big expose, which we are watching on WION. For one simple reason. And to put the facts before I explain the larger context, it is the Balakot Trading Center which has been reopened. Balakot Trading Center was actually destroyed by the Indian Air Force in a very special operation in 2019 as an aftermath of the Pulwama attack, in which dozens of soldiers were killed because of a terrorist act in the state of Jammu and Kashmir then. Now, Balakot Center has again been opened by the terrorists in Pakistan with active support of the Pakistani army to focus on the India operations, which means to create terror activities within India. And the two brothers of Maulana Masood Azhar were present. Maulana Masood Azhar is a declared terrorist. He was given sanctuary in Pakistan, and Maulana Masood Azhar was actually traded back to the Taliban in 1999 in exchange for the safety of hundreds of Indians who were hijacked by the terrorists. Now, Maulana Masood Azhar was then launched in Balakot jail of Jammu, and after that, when he was freed in Afghanistan in Kandahar, he made his way back to Pakistan. Into the safe haven, and created a number of terrorist modules which led to many attacks in India. Now, what happens is that in a year's time, after India as a country showed intent that they have changed the dynamics of relationship with Pakistan, and they would use both Air Force and Army in context of cross-border operations, this camp has opened up again. Now, this camp, Balakot, is not in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Balakot is actually in Pakistan. So that is why the Balakot hit was very, very important in context of strategic affairs. India's first surgical strike was in the Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. The second strike, which, was led by Indian Air Force, was in Pakistan. So it showed the intent that India as a country would protect its right and hit back at terrorists, whether in Pakistan or in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. So opening up of this clearly goes on to show that the Pakistan has again number of times like this gone back on its intent, does not cooperate with India on the issue of terrorism, remains the biggest exporter of terrorism in South Asia, perhaps in Asia also. Radicalization remains the single biggest problem in Pakistan, and terrorists like Maulana Masood continue to have a free run. For example, even Lakhvi, who will now be getting 1.5 lakh rupees, which is in Pakistani currency, is something which is travesty of justice and something which should not happen in any nation state where there is a constitution and rule of law. So this is a very serious development which we have seen. I do not want to go into the semantics of language and the abuses which are being heard in this video against a particular community, Alison. But it is a mirror to the world that Pakistan is not sincere in context of fighting against terrorism. It manufactures terrorism, creates terrorism and uses it as a strategic objective against India. And that is the bare truth.
Right. And Karthikeya, you did touch on this, the Balakot terror camp, which had been targeted by the Indian Air Force in February. Now, this is reopened. We do know that Pakistan had initially denied the success of the Indian operation at this site.
Pakistan had denied the operation, but the fact remained that the Indian Air Force was able to hit at Balakot. It is for this reason that the Pakistan, which then promised to take many of the international journalists to the site where Balakot is, they did not take them. And secondly, there is no doubt about the fact that the Pakistan has operated a number of training camps in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir to attack India, to foment trouble in the state of Jammu and Kashmir and elsewhere. 26/11, attack on Indian Parliament, attack on Indian Red Fort remains the three biggest examples on intent of Pakistan to use terrorism as a strategic tool to target India. Under the stewardship of India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, certain goalposts have been changed, Alison. And the goalposts are that India will no more reposit its faith in the doctrine of strategic restraint, which India demonstrated after 26/11 and did not use any surgical operation against Pakistan. There is a shift. Now, the doctrine is if there is an attack on India by the stateless proxy actors, India will act against the non-state actors in Pakistan or in the Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. The shift remains significant in the last 70 years relationship between India and Pakistan, and significant in the sense that India has created its own deterrence, that once attacked, it will ensure that the answer is given back to the neighbor who believes that the terrorism can be used as a policy objective against a country. And I think the opening of this camp is something which will open eyes for many of the Western countries who have shied away from taking tough action against Pakistan. And perhaps it is for this reason Pakistan continues to be in the grey list of FTF, whereas it actually deserves to be part of the blacklist.
Absolutely. Karthikeya, thank you very much for bringing us all the latest there.